Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I was just reading my pretentious book, Poetry from 1940 to 1960. Who would have thought that I'd be reading that in front of a camera? Not me, never. I have been having an interesting time. If you've been following me for a while, you probably know that I have chronic pain and that I've gone back to school, which means that I've been in a lot more pain. And of course, I would always deal with this very responsibly and never buy a lot of thrift books. Thankfully, they're not very expensive books, but I have bought a lot of books. So I have some b-roll, I have some time and some shots from vlogs that I wanted to put this together and talk about the books. Some of them I didn't put clips in, so I'm going to talk about only like 7 books here, and then we'll go on to the vlog points where we're going to go through and talk about some of the books that I read. And I hope that you enjoy this. I love doing hauls and I don't do them very often, so I thought this would be a fun thing, and I want to continue to be consistent, but I've also not been feeling very well, so I'm hoping that you enjoy this video. The first one we have is Justine by Durrell, and this is a book that I picked up because I had read My Family and Other Animals. Well, I read like 3/4 of it and I have not finished it yet because it only had 3/4 on audio and I need to go back and read the rest of it. But this is 3 of the 4 out of a quartet by his brother, who is also a character, because it's kind of like a memoir, but it's not really a memoir. Like, he definitely takes a lot of liberties with it. Like, his brother is with him despite the fact that his brother was not living with them and was married, and his wife does not appear because she was divorced by the time the memoir came out, and like all of that. And we like some creative nonfiction. But this is set in Egypt before World War II, kind of during the Great Depression. And then I think we have 3, so we have Justine and Balthasar, and then we have Mount Olive, which is a name, and that is the one that I don't have. And they all take place during the same events with different points of views, with people named, Balthasar and Mount Olive, as you do. And then Cleo takes place 6 years later, and I think it is set in World War II. And it's all set in Egypt, which is not a time when we really get a lot of history. Having native Egyptians rather than white people living in Egypt writing about this, would probably be better. And obviously reading it with an eye of colonialism and realizing that there's definitely some problems here as well. Next 3 that I have to talk about are also a series, and this is by Milton Wilson, and this came out in the 1970s, I think, originally, and it is a collection of poetry throughout the time. So the first one is Poets Between the Wars, and this comes out in like the 1920s and 30s. And then we have mid-century poetry, and we have poetry of the mid-century with 1940 to 1960. And then we have 1960 to 1970, and I really appreciate this. It has some like rebellion stuff on it. This is of course contemporary Canada, even though it's 50 years ago. And I think that he's done more since, but I don't know, I just really like this collection. I really am looking forward to reading this, and I especially love that it's Canadian poetry. I'm sure that it is missing many of the voices that I would love to have from the mid-century, probably not a lot of women and not a lot of people from color, but I am interested to read it and enjoy it. Talking about mid-century fiction, we have this one, which is Franny and Zooey, J.G. and Salinger. The Catcher in the Rye is probably one of my most hated books. I really, really don't like it. However, I did like To Esme with Squalder, so I'm excited to pick this up and see if I like another book by him. And we'll see. I'm gonna give him another chance, and also with a critical eye, because another guy who's just not super great. Another Canadian that I was super excited for is Stephen Leacock. I had no idea that he was a humorist. I kind of thought he was a little bit, I think I get him and Farley Mowat confused a lot, and I don't have that much interest in nature. However, this is Arcadian Adventures with the Idle Rich, and this title just immediately called out to me. And then the fact that it came out in 1914, which is one of my favorite time periods, just made it absolutely perfect. So I'm really excited. I have no idea what this is, other than it's supposed to be funny and then like Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and stuff, and it's gonna be great. We have Magic for Marigold, and this is, as you can tell, it Lucy Montgomery book, and I'm just gonna read the back because I honestly don't know it a lot, other than it sounds like it's gonna be awesome because all of her work is awesome. Lucy Montgomery is one of my favorite authors, by the way. Anne of Green Gables is one of her most famous. The eccentric Leslie family could not agree on what to name Lorraine's new baby girl. Even after 4 months, Lorraine secretly liked the name Marigold. Shocking. But who would ever agree on such a fanciful names as that? When the baby falls ill and gentle Dr. Mr. Woodrow Richards saves her life, the family decides to name the child after the good doctor. But a girl named Woodruff? How fortunate that Dr. Richards' seldom used first name turns out to be Marigold. A child with such an unusual name is destined for adventure. It all begins the day Marigold meets a girl in a beautiful green dress who claims to be a real princess. It sounds exciting and wonderful, and I'm sure it is already really funny. I've read the first line. And this is one of her lesser known books, so I'm really excited to read this at some time in the future. And just, I'm always caught between wanting to read all of Lucy Maud Montgomery and wanting to keep it for the rest of my life. So enjoy. I will now play the other clips from interspersing and looking at bookstores, and we'll see. Also, my fun book story is that the plant we're going to see is actually from Lucy Montgomery's house. She grew plants and had a beautiful garden, and her grandson, who has her plants or whatever, sold it or gave it to the bookstore that I bought Marigold from, so that is awesome.
We were riding through the woods with our bikes. We got scared when it got darker at night, 'cause everyone was missing safety lights. So we tried to use a flashlight as a guide, and now I'm standing in an overcrowded.
So I'm a little spacey and a little tired today, but after my cafe shift today, I went to a few thrift stores and really enjoyed them. So I was very lucky. I got two of my favorite books of 2020. So first of all, I got Dear Edward, and this is about a boy who survives a plane crash, and he deals with trauma and kind of PTSD, and it really, really spoke to me, and I really love it. It's simple. It also has parts of the people who died on the plane, and then also for ensemble stories that I loved in 2020. It is Homegoing, and it is just such a brilliant book, so well done. Transcendent Kingdom is also one of my favorites, and I read that and own it, so I'm really excited to have this copy. I mean, both of them are probably like $25 to $30 in paperback, and I got them for $2, so I was so excited to have them. And then this one made me super excited because it is Aesthetics and Decadents of the 1890s British poetry, and I love British poetry. I love this era, and it's Victober right now, so I'm just really excited for that. And then last but certainly not least, I found Animal Farm. I have a copy of this in the orange penguin editions, but this is really lovely and very cheap, so I was very excited to get this, and you know, they made me a little happy and excited. I always love going to thrift stores and supporting them and, you know, getting more books.
And now I'm standing in an overcrowded train, picturing the times we had as children while the rain is pouring down the windows and the people push their way. I've seen better days. Take me back to my hometown. Take me back to my loved ones. We were kids, now we're all grown. Back in my hometown. Take me back to my hometown. Back to my loved ones. Back to my hometown.
I'm not saying there's a correlation between how much pain I am and how many books I buy, but I am saying I have 6 more books. So this is from a gift card though. I got a gift card from a friend because I house at their house, and I was like, okay, well, you know, what are we gonna do? Buy books that I like super want, or we can buy a bunch of classics that I will read eventually, but definitely have. I have an issue with feeling like I have a hard time spending $18 on a book because either I've already read it and loved it, or haven't read it, and then maybe like I won't love it, and then I'm going to spend $20 on it. So I tend to just buy a lot of books that are classics because, you know, even if I hate them, then they're like, you know, they have value. I am a very, very frugal person, which I buy a lot of books, so I spend a lot of money on books, but, you know, quantity. Anyways, this is a continual issue in my life. However, these books are all books I'm very excited about. I was only going to buy 3 of them, but then there was 4 that I really wanted, and because they were 3 for $9, I had to kind of buy, you know, 2 more to make it even. And there was like up to 8 books that I would buy, other 8 or 9, well, there was kind of like probably like 11 of the books that I would have bought. A couple of them I didn't super love the title, and one of them I really didn't like the illustration on the cover, and the other few that they're books that I'm going to read eventually, but they're not nearly high on my things, and there's other books by that author that I should read. That was The Last Bow and Tender as the Night. Both of them I have other books by Fitzgerald and Durrell that I want to read first, so as much as I would buy them, there's a lot of books that I can read before then. This was the book that sent me over the 3 to 6, and this is The Ballad of the Sad Cafe and Other Stories by Carson McCullers. I think that he's a mid-century guy. I've never read his books. I friggin' knew she was a woman. I knew she was a woman, and I second guessed because I was like, I know The Heart is Lonely Hunter is by a woman. I know that that's Carson McCullers. I know that it's a male name. I should have believed in the feminism, but I second guessed myself and called himself a him because I didn't want to be a fool. Always be a fool for feminism, guys. And The Heart is Lonely Hunter, is that him or is that someone else? Anyways, I read the beginning of it and I thought it was really interesting and kind of just everyday, and I really love slice of life. The Ballad of the Sad Cafe, which is a great title, and I've been meaning to read him for quite a while, and this is a nice cover and a nice book, and it's short, and I've been into short stories, so I think I will appreciate it even if it's like read in 5 years. And then we have On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. He is a book that I wanted to read. I have a lot of these covers in like nonfiction and like short things like this. And he's a guy that I know that he in like the 1840s to 60s wrote a lot about like emancipation, and he also wrote about the suffragist movement. He's very much for women in leadership and politics and stuff like that, and that is something that I absolutely love. And I kind of want to read his books and support him because of that. This is A Diary of a Nobody, which is a book about this very regular person going throughout his life in Victorian London. And I've heard a lot about it from Katie from Books and Things, and I believe Lucy the Reader as well. And it just sounds really, really awesome, and I've really wanted to read it for quite a while. Then we have The Autobiography of a Female Slave. It's a book that I've been wanting to read and has been on my radar for quite a while. I really enjoy memoirs, and I really enjoy, especially the time period when, you know, it is so rare to see women writing, it's so rare to see Black women writing, and I think this is a really important book to have, and I really appreciate have first-person narration of these things. This is another book that I wanted to get but knew that I would probably not get to it immediately, so I was originally not going to get it, but this is Notes from the Underground and The Double. You know, Dostoevsky is an author that I want to read more of, and I've enjoyed what I've read so far from him, so this is a book that I will find interesting, and I read the first few lines to my friend who was with me, and we both liked it, so it was very compelling. The book that I took down and put off and put back on and all of that throughout the whole time I was there was Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. I've been looking into getting this book for quite a while. I find it very interesting. It's about an adulterous affair between an upper-class woman and her gardener, I believe. And I enjoy the art and how he's kind of inside her face. And it was also censored until the 1970s. I think it came out in the 1920s, which is a period of time which I really, really love. I've also been weirdly enjoying adultery fiction. I don't like adultery, and, you know, I feel like as my channel began, I talked so much about how, like, cheating was never justified, and I totally agree with that. However, I do find, especially in classic books, it can sometimes be an interesting theme to explore, even though I don't agree with it morally. And yeah, no, this is a book that I'm not sure if I'm going to like it or not, but I'm very interested in it, and it's like one of the books that I'm hoping to read in like the beginning of November. Like, I could just wait to listen to an audiobook and then decide if I actually want to own it. I wanted the other 5 books so much, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get this one. And yeah, those were my new 6 books. I have, you know, just a little bit too many books that coming into my library, but I am going to reorganize my bookshelves soon and kind of change the way that I present them for my backgrounds, and I'm super excited. Not that it matters when I can just do it in my car. Anyways, tell me which book you have read lately. What does your buying habits look like? Do you tend to buy lots of books at a time or just one book? Do you like to have the most books or just like a book you really, really want? What does it look like when you buy books? And happy reading and writing, and I'll talk to you next time.